So my name is Shelby Park, and I'm a board member of IDA Oregon. I have been involved for several years. I've had many jobs in the organization. My current job right now is I'm the mentor for the student empowerment group. There are a bunch of students from 8th to 12th grade, and we're really an advocacy group. Our students train other students and train teachers, and we go all over the state, and we've gone nationally to talk about what it means to have dyslexia, how it looks in the classroom, things that help them, things that don't. And it's very moving. And we're so glad to have all of you teachers and parents and tutors and advocates here with us tonight. We realize that being online, again, most of you have been online all day long doing your jobs. So I'd like to introduce you to Dahlia, and she is going to do a little introduction.
Thank you. Welcome everyone. I am absolutely delighted to be here. As we have been working on this project for a little bit, and I was just too excited. I think you can see with the results on the panelists and the large amount of participants that we didn't expect, how much work we put into this workshop and into this project. I wanted to welcome you on behalf of the Oregon Montessori Association. I wanted to officially thank our partners at International Dyslexia Association Oregon chapter. You have been tremendously helpful and patient with us and all our questions. I wanted to talk very briefly about the DREAM project. You probably saw a little logo with a brain when you were registering. That logo represents a project that we just started. Montessori education has been around for a while and it's very successful, but we believe that it can be improved. It can always do better, be better, and there are more things that we can do. So this DREAM project is part of that. It's part of finding ways to support the children and to support the educators and include everyone in a way that makes learning exciting for just anybody that reach a classroom. We are working with the team at IDA and a bunch of teachers and parents and educators and children. I think tonight you will see a little sample of what we're thinking about. You will learn a little bit about dyslexia, you will hear about dyscalculia and dysgraphia, but you will also see how amazing these children are, how having dyslexia doesn't stop them, many times it moves them forward, and how you can be tremendously smart and be slow at the same time. And it doesn't absolutely matter because you want to learn and you want to move on and go into new things. So welcome everyone, thank you so much. And thank you to all the children that are presenting tonight. I'm excited to hear you.
Thank you, Dahlia. I'm Danielle Thompson, and it looks like a lot of you are too. I'm one of the presenters tonight, and I teach high school at Forest Grove. I'm also a dyslexia screener and tutor, and I'm currently serving as president of the International Dyslexia Association Oregon branch. As I came to know more about dyslexia late in my teaching career, I realized that this difficulty with learning how to read, write, and spell reflected what many of my high school seniors were demonstrating in the classroom. And they didn't grow out of their reading struggles that I bet some of their earlier teachers thought they would, because they're so bright, so intelligent, and if they heard it, they got it. But putting their thoughts down on paper and reading was not their strengths. And so I needed to learn more, and I'm continuing to learn more. My goal is to help make a hidden learning difference visible so that everyone around can be more knowledgeable about the rich neurodiversity that we all sort of bring to the table. It's a pleasure to be here tonight on behalf of the IDA and working with the Oregon Montessori Association on the DREAM project. Thanks for your patience with joining our webinar and lots of you having my name. Stick with us. You should be in for a great night. Our mission at IDA is to raise awareness and understanding of dyslexia and to promote effective intervention and to support individuals with dyslexia and parents and students and practitioners. We strive to create a future for all individuals to have a richer and more robust life and access to the tools and resources that they need. So our format for tonight will be, I'll talk to you briefly about dyslexia and some other learning differences that you'll see in your classroom, whether they've been sort of identified or diagnosed or not. And then I'll take you through a short simulation activity, and then we'll turn it over to Shelby and the student panel and Jared to talk about accommodations and assistive technology. And towards the end of the evening, we'll have some time for questions and answers. Can you also know that after this event, we'll send you a follow-up email with a link to the video from this recording, as well as some of the resources that we'll reference during this evening. Okay. So dyslexia is a most common learning disability or learning difference. It's neurological in origin, and it's characterized by difficulties with accurate and or fluent word recognition, poor spelling and decoding. Dyslexia is not caused by poor vision or hearing. It's a difference in how the brain processes and connects sensory inputs. As many as 1 in 5 people have dyslexia or characteristics of dyslexia all over the world. It's common, and it can range on a continuum from mild to profound. Dyslexia runs in families. Parents of children with dyslexia are likely to have struggled with reading or writing or spelling. And dyslexia often occurs together with other brain-based conditions like ADHD. And the social emotional problems that can come along with dyslexia can be anxiety, depression, and those need to be taken care of in addition to helping to make reading and writing and spelling stronger and supporting a student's strengths. Dyslexia doesn't have anything to do with intelligence, and the treatment for dyslexia is educational. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few slides. Another learning difference that you may see in your classroom is dysgraphia, where a student has difficulties forming the letters, so difficulties with the physical act of handwriting, but also dysgraphia interferes with retaining spelling patterns. It impacts the speed of writing text and being able to get your ideas out of your head onto paper. It also impacts the ability of a student to create a permanent memory of written words that's linked to their pronunciation and their meaning. About 5 to 20% of the students in schools have dysgraphia, and it's neurological in basis. It's very common in students with ADD or ADHD. Tonight, you'll experience a small part of that difficulty. Another classroom difference relates to math and numbers, dyscalculia. And you'll have students in your classroom who have difficulties with mathematical reasoning and computation, in spite of adequate education or effort or intelligence. Dyscalculia, it looks like poor memory for numbers, time, sequences, directions. And any number-related task can produce great anxiety. And dyscalculia looks like lack of academic progress in mathematics with average or advanced skills in language, speech, reading, and writing. What can be helpful for students with dyscalculia is structured instruction, starting with concrete to semi-abstract to abstract concepts and teaching in a multimodal way. And one other learning difference that's really common is a student who may have be gifted in an area and also have a learning challenge or a learning difference in an area. And those students can be called twice exceptional or 2E. And the National Association for Gifted Children recognizes like these 3 types of students that could be identified as 2E, or they could be, even if they aren't identified, they could be supported in this realm, where you may have an identified gifted student who also has a learning disability or learning difference. You could have a student with a documented learning disability or learning difference whose giftedness has not yet been identified, but show really strong characteristics, a strength in some area. Example could be 99th percentile in, like listening comprehension and 2nd percentile in word reading. And then you may have some students who are unidentified because their gifts and their achievements are sort of masked by how they're performing in school. But for students who are twice exceptional, the physical organization of the classroom can be a challenge, as well as the organization of keeping track of all the academic tasks. We mentioned all of these different learning differences to help bring to mind that our classrooms are full of neurodiverse children, and you already know that, but paying attention to the areas that they show struggle or reluctance in at a very young age is important, because they do not grow out of that struggle. These learning differences can have these comorbid conditions. About 40% of students with dyslexia have ADD or ADHD. When students experience the feeling that they're learning differently than their classmates and they don't know why, that can cause anxiety and depression at a very young age. So going back to dyslexia, the learning difference can be seen in the brain in fMRI scans. And this slide by Dr. Fumiko Haft helps show the difference in brain patterns. The one on the left showing what dyslexic students show in their activation on the left side of their brain versus students who are not dyslexic and the activation that they show. And you can see the differences in the sizes of the circles. And what I want to do is take you through a simulation activity that will sort of reflect somewhat what that first brain, the one on the left, is showing in terms of you will experience an overcompensation in your left frontal region. You will experience the feeling of what it's like to not be automatic and have strong pathways in the left temporal parietal region and the occipital temporal region. You're going to experience that underactivation and having to compensate for that in the next simulation. So you'll need something to write with, and you'll need something to write on. And if you don't have that right around you, can you grab it? And just for a second, I'll tell you a little bit more about the International Dyslexia Association in case you need a little bit of time to gather some materials. So the IDA is a global organization, and it's focused on dyslexia around the world. We have 44 branches in the United States and Canada, and we have 14 global partners. And if you join IDA, and some of you out there are members already, thank you. By joining IDA, you not only lend your voice to a larger global movement working until everyone can read, but also we have a greater understanding of learning differences. You also are informed by current research, professional development opportunities, and you're in a global community of supporters working to achieve literacy around the world and empowerment. Okay, I hope you have some materials. We are going to act like this is class, and at the beginning of every class, I have my students come in and do an activity while I'm taking attendance. So this is your activity. Please follow these instructions. I want you to read the following information quickly. I want you to jot down key points. I want you to take notes on that information because I'm going to give you a quiz afterwards. When you're writing, please use your non-dominant hand. And this should be pretty easy because we just went over this material yesterday. So it's just review, but take notes. You can use your notes on your quiz. All right, you have 2 minutes. And I'll set my timer. Looks like Shelby's here. Jared's here. Dahlia's here. Maddox. Kimia. Check. Riley. Iman. Very good. Shelby, can you change the slide? More review. So remember, if you take careful notes, you can lean on them during your quiz. Hey, don't worry, this quiz is just worth 10,000 points, and this is the last day of the semester, so you should be fine. Okay, that's time. For your quiz questions, I am going to try to see if this works. I'm going to try to post this into the chat. Okay. So if your chat isn't open, can you open it? And just give me 1 second, and I'll post your quiz questions there. There you go. Okay, you can write your answers down on the page that you took notes. You'll submit it to me by taking a picture of it when it's over. You have 1 minute. Go ahead and answer those questions. All right, and that's all the time we have. Go ahead and put your pencils down. And I'll look for your responses to be sent to me. Thank you. So if you participated or tried, thank you. All the Danielles are going to get A's, I'll just say that. What made this difficult? In a short amount of time, we wanted to give you some difficulties, including a limited amount of time. Perhaps reading off a screen is difficult for you when you're trying to look up and attend to a sequence and look back down. Letter by letter transcription when you're faced with a pattern that's not very familiar or automatic. Difficulties with handwriting if you used your non-dominant hand and followed the directions. And maybe listening and writing at the same time, wondering, what I'm doing when I'm trying to take attendance. For students with dyslexia, class can feel like this, where you feel like the cards might be stacked against you in a number of different ways, including feeling like you're being rushed, difficulties accessing the text, difficulties getting your ideas out of your head onto paper, or in a virtual world, navigating something like the chat, which might look to some of our students like just a mess, awful mess, where it's hard to find the information that your teacher tells you is there. In the case of this, I just pasted a passage that was written in Welsh, and you can't decipher any questions out of that. Our students will talk a little bit more about their impressions of what could be more helpful than this. So tonight is mostly about accommodations and assistive technology, but I would be remiss if I didn't address this part. We know that effective reading instruction can change the brain, and you can sort of kickstart pathways to be more efficient on the left side. And while our lecture tonight is not going to go into detail on the reading instruction that works best for all struggling readers, I wanted to just acknowledge that it exists. And when you know how to help a student with dyslexia, you know how to teach any kid to read, no matter the reason for why they struggle. So in this slide, you have a picture of a typical reading brain, a child who is a typical reader. In the middle, you have a child with dyslexia before they had remediation in reading and writing instruction. And then the final slide, or the picture, is that a child with dyslexia changed the active pathways in their brain, and this is after a year of reading instruction. And we know that early intervention makes a huge difference because this process doesn't take as long. And the improvements are more likely to sort of take hold faster in children ages 6 to 8. That's why screening for risk early is so important. But it's also never too late to help improve your reading and writing and spelling abilities. I've got one more slide, Shelby. The treatment for dyslexia is educational, meaning if you have dyslexia, you are this type of thinker. But a lot of times our school system is set up to sort of always measure your weakness. And the better that we get at acknowledging how to help our students become strong readers early on, as well as supporting and fostering their strengths with support in their learning difference, the more our children will go through the school system feeling successful, knowing that they can thrive no matter what type of thinker they are. So the treatment for dyslexia is early screening for risk. And you can tell, or you can pay attention to difficulties that students have at a very young age to know that intervention is necessary. And according to Dr. Nadine Gabb, she says that children at risk for reading failure can be reliably identified even before kindergarten. If they show deficits in phonological awareness, verbal working memory, and letter knowledge, those 3 deficits have been shown to be robust precursors of dyslexia, again in children as young as age 3. That information is on our universal screening fact sheet from the IDA and will point you in the right direction of where to find this information later. But also the right type of reading and writing and spelling instruction is under a system of structured literacy based on the science of how we learn to read. And then classroom accommodations are necessary throughout a child's school experience and work experience in adulthood. Treatment of any concurrent conditions, as well as fostering the strengths. If a student is showing an interest in a certain area, keep building that up. You'll see tonight from our students, they'll talk about some of their areas of struggle, but you'll also see where they shine.
So we're going to talk tonight about assistive technology and accommodations. And I want you to look at this picture. We talk about how important it is to have early screening and early identification. When we look at this picture, we want to think about advocacy skills and a person's with dyslexia's path. You notice the path might start out smooth, then it gets a little rocky, and then you have some stairs, then you might be out of breath here for a little while as you continue up the hill. So advocacy is a learned skill. Not all students have it. Their path can seem pretty easy in the beginning. You might miss that they have dyslexia. You might ignore it. You might not know the symptoms to look for, but it's really, really important for you to know about dyslexia in the early grades so that you can make this pathway a little bit easier. So our students tonight are going to share with you their assistive technology and their accommodations. And if there's parents on there, I just want to point out that not all assistive technology works for everybody and not all accommodations. You really have to know your student. The most common accommodations that our students have access to, access to speech to text, that's where they talk in to the computer and it records their writing. Some of our students have dysgraphia and it's really hard for them to write physically and complete a writing assignment. Audiobooks probably are the #1 accommodation. A lot of our students actually can read. After intervention, they might be very slow readers. The problem is they can't sometimes read fast enough to keep up. Or they spend so much time reading the words, they have no idea what they've read. A lot of our students will look like they have comprehension problems when actually they're just struggling to read the text. And their verbal comprehension is sometimes far above their peers because they rely on that. So audiobooks doesn't make it so that they're cheating, it's not fair, they're not reading. When they need information, they need the audiobooks. And that continues on to college. A lot of our students that actually read at grade level will definitely need audiobooks in college because of the amount of reading that they have to do nightly. Spelling not to be graded in the younger grades and as they get a little bit older because they're really struggling with that. Spelling problems actually don't go away. You'll hear from our panel and you'll hear from adults. Spelling is one thing that seems to never be automatic for our students. Another one is access text to speech. So a lot of our students, maybe there's not an audiobook in class, or they're doing a worksheet, or they're taking a test. They need that information to be read to them at their grade level. Sometimes our students read below grade level and they're given worksheets and assignments in class that they can't access because they can't read it. Hard copy of notes and slides, very, very important. This one we argue over and over with teachers. Our students cannot pay attention, take notes, and read their notes back. Many of them can't. So this is actually the #1 accommodation in college, is where somebody would actually take your notes for you, or the notes are recorded and handed to you. Organization support, this might be from a teacher, from an app that keeps track of their homework. As the students get older, they might use Google reminders, but that organization piece can be really hard for them. Extra time on assignments and tests. When you'll talk to my students, the #1 thing they talk about is dyslexia is a time disability. They can do all of the work, they just don't have enough time in the day to complete it. So if an assignment takes you 2 to 3 times longer than somebody else, and all of your teachers have given you an assignment, you'll find that a lot of these kids, especially the high school kids you're talking, are staying up till 2 or 3 in the morning. It's not that they can't do the work, it's just they physically don't have the time. And they're missing out on a lot of social activities to make that happen. And the calculator is another common accommodation, assistive technology. Our students have a really hard time with memorizing their math facts. This one's really important. I'll never forget, I was at a speaker was talking in college, and he was talking about students that needed a calculator and how it kind of irritated him. And Another professor raised their hand and said, a student that doesn't know their math facts has had several probably good teachers throughout their whole life. And if they haven't been able to do their math facts quickly, a calculator should just be given to them. It's not a big deal if they know the concepts. So I'll share with my daughter, is just graduated with mechanical engineering, and she still has to use her calculator for simple, quick math facts. When we're considering choosing assistive technology in the classroom, we really have to be aware it's not a one-size-fits-all. We see this a lot. School districts will use one certain type of assistive technology. It doesn't work for everybody. It's personal. It has to be useful to the student. And the next thing, it needs to be explicitly taught. I'll often get students that I tutor that are given an app at school to use, and they're kind of scolded for not using it. They have no idea how to use it. And in fact, a lot of times their teachers don't have any idea how to use it. So it doesn't become fast for them. It's not useful because they haven't taken the time to learn it, and it takes time. And somebody that knows what they're doing really needs to be the person teaching them. And it takes time to become proficient. A lot of our students are very resistant to assistive technology. They don't want to use it. They don't want to be different. They want to be like their peers. And they really don't see a purpose because it takes them a while to use it until they become proficient, and they'll see that time reduction that they're using. They have more time in the day. And students need quick access to the technology. A lot of times I'll go to meetings where teachers will talk about how the student doesn't use their technology. Well, their computer might take 15, 20 minutes to boot. It's in another room. It's down the hall. It hasn't been preloaded, their information, so that when they go to access the information they need, it's not on their computer. So students really need that quick access. So we're going to talk tonight. I like to talk to the experts. A lot of times you'll hear people talk and give advice, but it's really important to pay attention to the students. The students are the ones that have to get through school. School can be really difficult for them. It can be fun, it can be hard, and they're resilient. So we just would like to take a minute to hear from them. If you have a question, go ahead and put it in the chat. We'll try to get to it at the end. So first up, see if I can find Maddox and all of these. So Maddox, can you unmute?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you. So Maddox, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I like just my personality, or
Just when were you diagnosed, Maddox?
oh, okay. So I was diagnosed at the beginning of 8th grade, end of 7th grade, and
when did you know a difference though? So that's pretty late to be diagnosed. When did you know that something wasn't quite right?
I noticed in 2nd primary when I lived in Scotland.
Okay.
I noticed them when I couldn't keep up with my other classmates in my reading assignments and my writing assignments.
Okay, and you are now a sophomore?
Yes.
All right. Can you just give us the words that describe you? You chose these words.
I chose friendly because finds the good in people, smart, and a good sense of humor, because I've had people tell me quite often that I'm a super friendly person because I always go up to people and try and make friends with them. I feel like it makes it easier to talk, you know. And then I always find the good in people because finding or just focusing on the bad parts about someone just makes it really hard to be their friend. And if you find the good in people, you can get around bad stuff. You can have fun. And then I'm smart because I'm really good at math and I like building, and I feel like that's a smart thing.
Perfect.
And then I have a good sense of humor because I make people laugh sometimes. I try.
So I want to talk about your classroom experiences. So let's talk about the first couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that was a struggle? Did you see that other kids were reading and you weren't?
Yeah, I did notice. So while I lived in Scotland, I noticed that everyone else could read the word "the" perfectly fine, and I could never get it right. It was not possible. Like, it took me at least a good year and a half to figure out how to say the word "the," and then by that time I was just really far behind everyone, and I'd moved away from Scotland, so it was kind of like, that's kind of the time I realized, like, oh shoot, that's not normal.
So do you think that your teachers noticed, or did everybody you were?
No, not really. I don't think they did, because, well, no one noticed until my mom until I don't know when my mom or one of her buddies or something said, like, hey, you should probably get tested in seventh grade. But yeah, to answer the question, I kind of forgot.
Yep, perfect.
Okay.
And so tell me what teachers might observe if they're watching you in the classroom right now.
That I'm a slacker, and that I'm don't pay attention, and I kind of just do my own thing without paying attention in class.
Okay, and so now tell us what's really happening with you in the classroom.
Well, what happens in the classroom? Well, usually I try my best to stay focused, and I usually do something at the same time while I'm listening to the teacher. So I'm either playing with a pencil, twirling around my fingers, or I'll be playing with a Rubik's Cube, or I'll be drawing, or I'll be doing origami, or just like anything to keep my mind off of like going and talking to that one person. But teachers see that as me not paying attention and not staying focused and engaged in the class when I really am.
Okay, so a lot of people don't understand that. You really need that feedback of a fidget.
Yeah.
Your attention.
Yeah.
So do teachers notice how much time you spend at home?
What do you mean by that question?
Doing your homework and
your
assignments and reading and.
I don't think they know how much time I spend at home doing homework. Like, usually it's like 5 to 6 hours on like a super busy day, and then like 4 hours on a normal day of homework, just graphing and writing and writing down in a chart, and weird tables they give us to write in. It usually takes me like 4 hours to do, because I have to go through all the steps of checking my homework, making sure I did it right. Did I actually do what they asked me to do?
Yeah.
And they all say, it's like, oh, it's going to take you like 15 minutes to get this table all written down with definitions and a picture and a citation. You're like, what? What is this? You get kind of confused.
So you list as your strengths, hard worker, good problem solver, technology, math concepts.
Yes.
So a lot of people don't understand that maybe the multiplication facts don't come easy, but the math concepts you're pretty good at.
Yeah. I really enjoy math. It's something I really like doing, because it's really repetitive. And once I got through algebra, everything just kind of snaps. So it's just kind of the same sort of basic idea over and over again. And even though it might take me just a little bit longer, or I might not know the answer right off the top of my head, just doesn't mean I don't like it, or it's not hard, or it's hard. It just takes me a second, and I really enjoy it.
Okay, and so tell me about your struggles.
Well, all of them listed seem pretty generic, but I have a really big struggle with paying attention to details, which kind of includes most of those things on that list. So reading, I skip over certain words or certain like aspects of the book, or I'll skip like a page, or like a sentence by accident, and I won't get that specific detail that they want me to write in, and I'll spend hours trying to find where it was, and then it'll end up being like on the first page. Writing, it has to do with spelling. Like I miss the tiny little, like maybe a comma or the accent, or for Spanish class, or the space, just kind of small things, and the teachers find that very irritating, even though it's just me kind of having an oopsie. And then also with writing, I can't get my ideas down on the paper very well. So like speech to text really useful because I can just yabber out random words, and then I can kind of refine it with my parents or teacher.
So tell us about your assistive technology that you use and how it's helpful.
So I use speech to text on a regular basis. So for note taking, and I just kind of speak into a Google Doc, and spelling out words that I don't know. So I just kind of talk into my phone, and it kind of pops up, and that's really useful. I use that a lot of the time. Like instead of typing, that's what I do. And then Easy Spelling Aid, I use that. It's like you talk in your phone and it spells something for you. So I use that when I'm trying to write a like comment in the little chat section. Usually I like speak like 3 words, and then I just copy paste it into the chat. That's really useful. And then I use PhotoMath to help me out with if I don't understand how to do something in math class. And because online schooling is very hard with math, because teacher can't really explain stuff in the way that they can in person. I use PhotoMath to kind of help me get through, like, get the ideas that I missed in class. So that's really useful because it goes through and explains the steps and processes of solving the problem, and it really helps. And then Learning Ally, I do that audiobooks.
Perfect. And then your accommodations are to be able to use your assistive technology, your extra time, hard copy of notes, teacher support for organization. Is it hard to get teachers to provide your accommodations?
Very hard. That's like that's the century-old quest that no one can seem to figure out or conquer. Yeah, I have to push very hard. We had to push pretty hard the last couple of years to get the assistive tech and the extra time onto my 504, because a lot of the teachers are afraid that I'm not going to be doing the same amount of work as other kids just because I have assistive tech, and they feel like I'm going to be on my phone for just like lollygagging, and it's just not true. It's just kind of hard to get through class when they don't follow my 504. They feel like it's not important.
It's hard to keep proving yourself over and over again, isn't it?
Yeah.
Starting a new school year, having to prove yourself.
Every trimester, 5 different teachers you have to do it with. It's doozy.
So your thoughts on virtual learning?
I enjoy it better than normal school, because there's less distractions, because in class, and I can kind of focus a little bit easier, because there's not as much. I don't have the urge to go talk with the random kid in the back of the classroom who's making a stir fry or like doing paper airplane. It's a little bit easier to focus on what the teacher's trying to tell you, and you can kind of like get your work done without people distracting you.
Okay, and so you did have a problem with virtual learning. Do you want to tell us what just happened? You have a really great teacher that you love, but can you talk us through what the problem was that you were having?
So I really like my English teacher. She's really nice. She has a really good, like, her classes are really good. They get the job done in the right way, and it's really good. But the thing with this online learning is she does not like technology very well, and so she doesn't like me using my technology to like help me turn in writing assignments or flashcard assignments, and I have to take pictures of each flashcard and each writing assignment and turn that in. And that there's just so many steps involved with that. And it just gets lost in the shuffle, and I can never get the homework that she wants from me turned in the right way, or sometimes it's not in the right PDF and crazy jumbo mumbo stuff.
Okay. Well, thanks, Maddox, for sharing with us.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks. So, Riley, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hi.
Hi, Riley. Can you tell us a little bit about you?
Okay. Some words that, okay, I'm Riley. I'm a freshman. I was diagnosed when I was in 6th grade. Some words to describe me would be I'm very outgoing. I'm very adventurous. I love to travel and explore new things. And I'm a social butterfly. I love hanging around people. I'm very social.
Okay. And when were you diagnosed with dyslexia?
6th grade.
6th grade. And what were you diagnosed with before that?
ADHD, anxiety, something like that. It was never dyslexia.
So no one realized that you really couldn't read, did they?
No, they thought that I just wasn't paying attention in class and that I just need to read more books at home and practice reading.
So I had the honor to meet Riley. We had a book club that we had four girls who really couldn't read well, decided to do a book club to try to get into reading a book. And Riley really impressed me because we just showed her a little bit of technology and then she was just off. Like she just took control and she just seemed to have it down. And she kind of advocated for herself. She made them test her for dyslexia. So do you want to explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so I showed up to the book club and Shelby was showing me how to do audio, and I downloaded the app and I was like so excited that I actually could like remember the book and actually comprehend the words, and it was just like so cool. And then I went to school and I was like asking them if I could use audio, and my mom realized that, oh my gosh, she totally should get tested for dyslexia. So she told the school and they did all these tests, and so I got an IEP. And so then I started tutoring with Shelby, and it's just been way better ever since. I've gotten an IEP and a lot more help.
So you have an interesting kind of something. You were at a school that did a really good job of giving you accommodations, but didn't know about dyslexia. And now you're at a school that's really not so great with doing the accommodations. You want to tell us how you feel about that?
Yeah, so I was at a school. I've been at the school since 2nd grade and all up until 7th grade, and I got the IEP in 6th grade. So at that school, they tested me and they thought that I just had a vision problem. So they set me up with an occupational therapist. So they thought that dyslexia was an eye problem. So I had to do all these therapies, but they gave me all the accommodations I needed. I asked for anything and all the teachers are pretty understanding and they all got me all my accommodations right away. And then for 8th grade, I switched schools, and at this school, they know what dyslexia is, but they're not very understanding. They don't really want to give the accommodations. They think that like if I'm doing fine in class and that I have good grades, that I don't need my accommodations, when they're very helpful.
So let's go ahead and talk about your strengths.
So my strengths are, I'm very good at projects. I'm really good at designing stuff. So when it comes to projects in school, I'm pretty good. Presenting, I'm very good at presenting. I am very social, so when I speak in front of people, I'm pretty good. I'm good at math. definitely one of my strengths in science.
And you won an award last year for your presenting the state of Washington. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that was my National History Day project, and I made it to state. And then unfortunately, since the coronavirus, I couldn't keep going, but I did make it through that, and I placed first place.
Very good. So tell us about your struggles.
So my struggles are reading, writing, and spelling. Pretty generic for dyslexia, but yeah, definitely my harder is reading. Since the accommodations really have helped my writing, and I actually enjoy writing a lot more now.
So go ahead and tell us about the assistive technology that you use.
I use Immersive Reader in OneNote, and so I can type all my documents into Microsoft OneNote, and then I can use their Immersive Reader tool, and it'll read my document back to me, and it really helps me find the mistakes in my writing, and just like helps me like keep going in writing, and I don't get stuck as often. And I use Bookshare for reading. It's audiobooks. Easy spelling aid, so I can talk a word into my phone and it'll tell me how to spell it. I use Google Docs, speech to text. So when I have to write documents for school, I also will type it into Google Docs, so that then I can use the tool, the speech to text tool, so then I can talk it in there.
And do you feel like your assistive technology helps you with that time factor, like everything takes so long?
Yeah, for sure. It's cut my time down way more.
Okay. So tell us about your accommodations.
So I'm allowed to use audiobooks whenever there's anything I have to read for class. Text to speech, I can always use text to speech for writing my essays. Extra time, if I'm falling behind in an assignment or I'm taking a little extra than it was supposed to, then I can tell the teacher and they'll give me extra time. Clarify directions, so after they give directions, they'll clarify with me that I'm understanding what I need. Copy of notes, so the teachers are required to give me notes so that if I miss stuff when I'm taking notes, that they'll fill me in. And then teacher support, they're supposed to just provide extra support.
Okay, and so it's a struggle for you to get the copy of your notes, isn't it?
Yes.
So
that is always the hardest. Because if I go to them and ask for the notes, they will tell me that I need to do my own notes and that I'm like a freshman and then I need to know how to do my own notes. And so it's always hard to do that. Other than that, pretty much everything else is pretty good because I do it myself, so.
Okay. So let's kind of tell us about your classroom, what we might see for you in the classroom, what teachers might see when they're observing you.
Typically they see someone who's really good grades, and I'm pretty dedicated to school. I try really hard to keep up and have good grades. And so they don't normally see the dyslexia piece till they see how much time I stay up at night working on homework and stuff, because the result is always good because I spend so much time going back through my essays and making sure that they're perfect because I'm a perfectionist. So typically the teachers wouldn't see that in me. And they even said that after I got tested, they said they would have never tested a student like me.
Right. So that actually can hurt you a little bit in that piece where they just look at your grades and assume you don't need accommodations.
Yeah, it's kind of their excuse is I'm doing fine, that I can do it on my own and that I got it all figured out, which really, I mean, I did. I have the good grades, but it takes me so long and it's so frustrating staying up so late and trying to get projects done last minute because it took me so long.
And Riley's one of these 2E kids, twice exceptional. So she's gifted and she has dyslexia. So sometimes when they see her good grades, they're kind of good enough. but I don't think they realize how gifted she is, and good enough isn't really good for her. She should be able to have access to higher level things because she's so smart. Let's talk about your thoughts on virtual learning real quick.
I am doing actually well. I like it because things are kind of on my own time. It's kind of hard to communicate with teachers and make sure that I get my extra support and things. It's helped that when I email them, they set up a private Zoom call with just me and the teacher if I need clarification on something or need some extra help. So I'm doing well. I'm doing better than I would in normal school, actually. I have straight A's right now.
So are you getting any help? You're on an IEP. So are you getting any services? Are those being provided virtually?
Yeah, so I have like aides in my classes, so like assistants that help me. So they normally will clarify after all of our Zoom meetings and email me and ask if they need to set up a private one with me and ask if I need help, which has been helpful. But those classes that I don't have that extra support is definitely harder. So I just kind of have to be more stern with the teachers and tell them like I need my help and I deserve my accommodations.
So very good advocate for yourself. So can you give us tips? There's a lot of teachers online tonight. Can you give tips that make virtual learning a little bit easier for you?
Yeah, so I really like when teachers will like email and clarify, make sure you're doing okay. And then the private Zoom calls really help. Like just the other day, I did one with my Spanish teacher and I totally like understood everything way better. And she was just really understanding, and it was like so much more helpful than trying to communicate on an email.
Perfect. Thank you, Riley.
Yeah.
So next we're going to talk to Kimia. So Kimia, I'm trying to unmute you here.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Hi, I'm Kimia. I am a freshman at iTech in the 9th grade, and I'm 15. Some words that describe me: outgoing. I love talking to people and being funny and having a good time. I'm a people person, so again, I am really good at reading people's body language, and without them saying anything, I already know how they're feeling. I'm athletic. I play tennis. I played soccer and swimming, and I love going outside and things like that. And creative. I love doing art and artsy stuff, building. I built a vertical garden in my backyard. Things like that I enjoy.
Perfect. So tell us a little bit about, you have an interesting family. Tell us a little bit about dyslexia in your family.
Yes. So I have an older brother, Iman, who's also going to be talking tonight. He's dyslexic, and my younger sister is dyslexic, and my mother is dyslexic. But I am the most dyslexic out of anyone in my family. I have the hardest time in school.
And I think it's important for people to share, to know, for you to share to us. How long have you been doing tutoring? How long have you been working on this?
I've been being tutored since the 1st grade.
And can you tell us kind of all the different tutorings that you're doing?
So I tutor with Shelby with my reading and writing and spelling. And I have a math tutor for algebra, and I also have a homework tutor. So she helps me catch up on things and explains what we're supposed to be doing. Because sometimes when the teacher says stuff, I don't really process it.
Okay. So I think it's important for people to know the amount of time and the amount of effort that you're putting in. So a lot of times people will say, you're not, giving enough effort. You're not trying hard enough. And that kind of relates to your classroom experience. Do you want to share with us what you might look like in the classroom?
So just looking at me in the classroom, you might notice that I'm not looking at the teacher when they're presenting. I'm fidgeting or moving around in my chair. Or sometimes I have earbuds in, not like music, but I have noise canceling earbuds. And people think that it's weird that you need to have that in class, but it helps me just to get into the zone so I can do my work and not have as much homework. What's really going on when I'm in the classroom is when I'm not looking at the teacher, I'm processing what they're saying. So if I'm looking at them and listening to them, my brain's not gonna process it. It's too overwhelming. So I'll just listen to what they're saying, and then it helps me process it, and I can understand what they're saying.
Perfect. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about your strengths.
Yes, my strengths. I love playing the piano. I look forward to it. It's one of my favorite things to do. I'm really good at persevering. I've been tutoring since I was like 7, and I've had to do a lot of work that kids my age who aren't dyslexic have to do. I've had to do 3 or 4 times the amount of work, plus school, and usually before school I have tutoring, and then after school I usually have sports or piano, and then tutoring after school as well, and then homework. So I am like always busy. What?
Tell us about your people skills. You're probably one of the most, I guess, I just have the best people skills, I think, out of anybody I've ever met. You know how to work a crowd. You know how to get the help you need. It's a huge strength for you. Tell us how you use that.
So I'm very outgoing. I know how to talk to people and get them engaged in the conversation, and really good at reading people's body. And I'm really good at advocating for other people as well as myself. So when I see someone struggling in class and they don't know what to do, I can help them I can introduce them to the teacher and really help them connect and tell them and kind of communicate for the person if they can't tell the teacher what's going on.
All right. And so your struggles, and we all keep saying that it's pretty generic, but it's pretty normal to struggle with reading, writing, spelling, and grammar.
Yes. So I have ADD, and beginning of 8th grade, I got diagnosed and I got medicine for my ADD. And that's when reading and writing and spelling really started to click. Before, in tutoring, I'd learn it and then it would just go out the other ear. It never really stayed in my head. But now, since starting my medicine, I have made huge progress in my grades and my tutoring.
Right. So tell us about assistive technology, because you were one of our most resistant students on the panel to use assistive technology. How has that changed?
So I first started using assistive technology last year after kind of being taught for several years. I don't really want to use it because it takes longer, and I get looks from other kids in the classroom like, why does she have an iPad? And it was just really difficult for me to kind of have people look at me like that. And also some of the apps for me are inconvenient. So it's easier for me to just read. Well, it's not easier, but it's quicker for me to read it instead of getting out my headphones and plugging in my headphones and getting everything ready. And then, class is over. By the time I'm all set up and ready to read. So sometimes it's harder for me to do all those steps, or I could just kind of try to read it. But overall, having assistive technology does make a big difference when you embrace it.
And you have two kind of unique accommodations. You get to leave the classroom for breaks, and you have noise canceling earbuds. So tell us about that.
Okay, so I get to leave the classroom whenever I want. I don't usually do my test in the classroom with everyone else. I have Miss Bauman. She's like an assistant, an advocate for kids with disabilities. So I get to go to her classroom for tests, or when I need a break, I'll eat a snack or something, or I need help, one-on-one help in my assignments. I'll go to her and we'll sit one-on-one and talk through everything. And then earbuds, and if I don't need to leave the classroom, but I need it to be quiet, I just put my earbuds in, and it just drowns out the noise so I can really focus in on doing my task.
So your thoughts on virtual learning? You're not a fan, are you?
No, I do not like virtual learning at all. It's really hard for me to not connect with the teachers. I'm really good at connecting with people. So having a screen in front of me instead of actually having someone to talk to is really hard. And just they pile on a lot of assignments. They think, okay, well, it's quarantine. The other teachers aren't going to be doing that many assignments. So each teacher thinks that, and then they pile on more and more assignments. And then I just drown in all of the work I have to do, even with my homework tutor.
So several of our students have been complaining about the chat box. Do you want to talk about that?
Yes, the chat box. When they're making Zoom, they don't think about having a correction spelling in the chat box. So when I am trying to type out something, like an answer that you're just supposed to type really quickly, I have to use Easy Spelling Aid and on my iPad, and then I have to transfer and copy it onto my laptop for the correct spelling.
Perfect. Thank you, Kimia, for sharing. So we are going to go to Iman next.
Hello.
Hi, Iman.
Okay, so I guess an introduction of myself. I'm a senior in high school, so I'm doing a lot of college preparation stuff that's not fun. And I have dyslexia, non-specific ADD, dysgraphia, and then some speech impediment stuff.
And do you want to tell us about the words that you chose for you?
Yeah. The words I chose kind because in school and other situations, I help people out. Like if someone is struggling with work, like sometimes I'll go over and I'll help them if I can be of any assistance. The biggest word for me here that describes me is calm. I feel like that's just a great word to describe my personality. I don't really get stressed over really anything. I don't really have to deal with any anxiety. I'm just calm and just steady just most of the time. And I chose intelligent because I can understand some pretty complex ideas and concepts in school. It just might take me a little bit longer to get them, but then once I understand what's going on, everything's kind of easy sailing from there. Okay,
and what age again were you diagnosed?
Oh, I was diagnosed in the 5th or 6th grade. Essentially what happened was my sister got diagnosed and my mom's like, might as well diagnose you. And then they figured out, oh, I have all this stuff. And I was like, oh, that probably would have been good to know a little bit earlier, but oh well.
So would it have been nice to get an intervention earlier? Would it have helped, do you think?
Yeah, I think it really would have been nice the intervention earlier, especially like from like first to like third grade. That would have been like nice to have that, but you can't really control that type of stuff.
So let's talk about you. I like to brag about you for a minute. I'd like you to tell everybody what your grade point average is and the classes that you're taking at Seton Catholic right now.
Okay, so my like cumulative GPA from like freshman to junior year is it's unweighted, so it's a 4.316. So like, and the reason I like it goes above 4 is because I take a lot of AP classes, so I get a little bit extra bonus. And the classes I'm taking this year are AP Comparative Government, AP Calculus AB, AP Literature and Composition, Honors Physics, AP Bio, and then Theology, and then I have a study hall.
So I think it's important for people to realize that just because you have dyslexia doesn't mean that you can't be in these advanced classes, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's really important that people push students with dyslexia to their ability, not to their disability, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
So let's talk a little bit about your strengths. So this.
All right. So my strengths. So like, I feel like I'm a really hard worker. Like during my junior year when I had 3 AP classes, I was like staying up really like making sure I would get all my homework done, putting in a lot of hours, and like just like I was super driven to succeed and to have A's in like all my classes and to get that success. And now instead of like staying up as late, I'm waking up really early, like waking up at 4 in the morning to do homework before school. And then like I feel I can self-advocate for myself a lot. I do that a lot, and I'm pretty good at it. Like I had a new teacher this year. Like I went into her office hours, had a 30-minute conversation about her, about like my learning differences, and we like hashed out all the plans, and she was super understanding, and it was really cool.
So one of the things I want to point out on your struggle slide is there's something that's missing that most of our students have. And
yeah,
I'll tease you about this. So do you want to explain what's missing on your struggles?
Yeah. If you look on my struggle slide, you will see reading is not there. No, that wasn't a typo. That was on purpose. Believe it or not, I really do enjoy reading. Like, it's one of my favorite pastimes. It takes me longer than like the average student or the average person, but I've been reading like for like since the 4th grade. I hit a bump, found a book series I got hooked into, started reading it, and just started reading a bunch of books. And like my reading level continued to increase because I was able to discover a passion and love for books. I'm similar to my mom like that. We both love reading. So that's pretty unique to me, and like I do get teased for it sometimes.
So it's just important to point out that dyslexia is not the same for everybody. You can't put everybody in the same box. So tell us, your big struggle is handwriting.
Yeah, so like with dysgraphia, like handwriting and like just writing in general can just be a struggle. I remember doing like those cursive like workbooks that like you have like grade schoolers go through to like improve their handwriting. I was doing that sophomore year in high school to try to make my handwriting more legible so I could actually go back to my notes and read through it and actually understand what I'm saying. And sometimes I come across a word and I'm like, yeah, I don't know what that says right there. Oh, well, I'll just have to guess. So like handwriting is like my biggest struggle, and then like kind of like all things writing and spelling and grammar.
Perfect. Tell us about your assistive tech. What do you use?
Audible, Audible, Audible. That is my favorite thing because like I really struggle with like reading Shakespeare. Like it's like old English. Like we struggle with modern English. So it seems like that would just be even harder, and it is. And then also for like really difficult like historical novels that sometimes I have to read, like Audible is just really nice, so I can listen to it and maybe follow along in a book if I need to annotate. And then Google Docs, I use that for pretty much all my assignments and just typing like out essays or answering questions on Google Docs, like I do that. And then Easy Spelling Aid, like I just use, if I don't know how to spell a word, I just talk to my phone, tells me the word, I type it back into the essay I'm writing.
And then your accommodations really quickly, extra time, I'm gonna point that one out because you just took some kind of big test. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, a week ago on Wednesday, I took the SAT, and I would have done terribly if I didn't have extra time. To put it in short and simple terms, SAT for a normal student without accommodation takes 4 hours. Yeah, my SAT took 7.5, and like I almost didn't finish the reading section. So like I really need the extra time just so I can move through the material.
Perfect. And then let's share your virtual thoughts on virtual learning.
I don't like it. I miss having that school environment that is dedicated to learning and to work. And I find it really hard to stay motivated at home and then you have like the lines between family time and work time blurring, and it's just harder to stay motivated and to do your work for me. And I also don't get that one-on-one connection with teachers. So like that is also really hard because I can't communicate with them because I'm just used to like walking up to my teachers when like I have free time or when they're not teaching in class and just talking to them real quick about what I need help with. So like it's harder to do when you're at home.
So thank you for sharing, Iman. So you notice that two of our students actually prefer the virtual learning, and 2 of our students are kind of struggling with it. So again, it's not a one size fits all for kids with dyslexia. So I want to show you or have Jared, our board member, talk. Are you there, Jared? And
I'm here.
everybody assumes that dyslexia you can grow out of, and when school's over, it's done. Can you share a little bit?
Yeah, I think the unfortunate part is that's far from the reality of it. You know, I was fortunate to go on to college. I was diagnosed when I was 5 years old, and I think some of the lasting effects of dyslexia play into your adult life, and there's everyday challenges that occur, whether it be reading a menu. I have stories of like, I have a running group that I work with, and we would meet at a restaurant, go for a run, and then come back to the restaurant. And the hardest part of that experience is actually reading the menu, not the run or not the workout itself.
So I like to point out to the parents and teachers all of your degrees that you have. I think that's important for parents and teachers of younger kids to realize what you've accomplished. Can you tell us what they told you in school was going to probably happen?
Yeah, so after getting diagnosed with dyslexia, I actually met with a specialist, and she said, okay, the next 18 years of your life are going to be really hard. It's going to be like running with a cut on the bottom of your foot. It's going to be painful at times, but you can do it. And I remember hearing that, and I don't think she realized how literally I might take it with my life. But encountering school and being in elementary school, I got, specialists would examine you, and people thought I wouldn't potentially not graduate high school or not get above a C average. And so, fortunate to have the support of my parents and resources for tutoring, graduated high school and went on to college, went on to USC and got my master's in communication management, and eventually got an MBA from Seattle Pacific University, all while working.
And then tell us about all these medals, because this really, just that determination shows right here.
Yeah, so I'd worked in college sports for 12 years. After 2 master's degrees. I thought I could really do more. And I ended up quitting my job and training for this thing called the World Marathon Challenge, where one runs 7 marathons in 7 days on 7 continents, with the goal of fundraising $50,000 for the International Dyslexia Association. And so those medals were from each of the marathons that I ran in.
Amazing. So tell us what you might have looked like in the classroom.
So a mess would probably be the right word. Classroom environment was really hard because just things didn't come natural to me. So like, I remember examples of like reading instructions off a piece of paper, like I couldn't really understand it. And my classmates would all be like, seemed like they were moving really fast, like knew what they were doing, knew what they were supposed to do. And I could never like make the words make sense to me. I probably fall in Kimia's boat with being severely dyslexic and having that as a real challenge from my development in the classroom.
And then I'd like to put this slide up just so our other students see that strengths, struggles, it's the strengths that get you through. Do you want to talk about?
Yeah, so I mean, the best example I have is like, so when I was in the World Marathon Challenge, at mile 22 of the 3rd race, like my whole left side had locked up on me and I couldn't rotate my leg to keep running. So I had to figure out how to like hobble through the next 4 miles and then the 4 marathons left after that. And in that challenge, I realized something, that like dyslexia, like the challenges of dyslexia actually prepare me to run that race, because you kind of operate when things aren't ideal. And I think from that, the resiliency and being driven, and also having empathy for other people and what they might be experiencing starts to come into play.
And then your struggles?
Yeah, I mean, even still, like reading menus definitely is a struggle. Spelling's an issue. It's better than it was, but there's still challenges. And then reading has always just been really challenging for me. So stuff like immersive reader or having Instapaper where I can hear articles back to me is really cool. And then the new AirPods Pro like allows text messages when your phone's locked to be read to you. And that's been really helpful. And also the other thing I've realized is that keeps my energy level high. You know, I'm not expending so much energy trying to read something during the day, and I have more energy towards the end of the day because I'm able to use some of these technologies.
And then the accommodations that you used in school are pretty typical.
Yeah, I fall in Mons with the SATs and having extra time on that. Like, I think I spent the full extra time and almost didn't finish. Had a note taker in college, which was great. And then extra time in, throughout my high school and college career, even a private room, I think, for taking tests in college. So all things that were really helpful to my process.
Okay. Do you want to tell us about this real quick?
Yeah. So while I was training for the World Marathon Challenge, I started writing. And this past fall, we launched Running the Distance. The book came out, and all the sale proceeds go back towards the International Dyslexia Association as a fundraiser.
And then this is really an amazing thing that you've done here to set this up. Tell us about this.
Yeah, so we were trying to think of like, how do we get back to the community? So like, I recognized like how fortunate I was to have parents and resources, and I knew how hard it was even with those resources. So I always thought about students that didn't have access to those. So we set up this scholarship foundation where this past year we gave out 3 $1,000 scholarships, and we're kind of just trying to continue to build this Run the Distance scholarship to allow other students the opportunity to go beyond high school, whether it's their trade school or junior college or a 4-year or traditional 4-year. So we're really trying to be extensive with how we support the students in the dyslexia community.
And so we kind of run out of time for questions. If you'd like to stay and we'll do questions. You're welcome to. If you have to leave because of the time limit, feel free to. But I think if you can, it'd be great to stay on just for a couple minutes and we'll answer the questions at the end. I'm just going to go through a couple slides really quick. We have resources here. We have our student technology. We have an advocacy card that students can fill out and hand to their teachers. Here is all of our information if you need to get a hold of us. Our students run an Instagram Live with Jared every Monday on Dyslexia, You're Not Alone, and Jared S. Blank. So that is fun to follow for students that you can hear other students' experiences. And thank you for being part of our journey. I'm going to go to the questions and answers now. Does anybody have any questions for us?
Shelby, this is the real Danielle Thompson. There's something in the chat. How would you describe, this is for the students, of course, how would you describe dyslexia or dysgraphia to a friend in your words?
Kimia, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, what was the question?
How do you describe dyslexia or dysgraphia to friends?
I would say dyslexia is a time disability. For me, it makes it very hard to learn at the same pace everyone else does. And I have to work 3 times as hard to just do the same amount of work. But that does not mean I'm not capable of doing it.
Perfect.
Thank
Danielle,
you.
I see one of the questions about the kids, our traditional, the educational environments. And I have students that are in the Montessori environment. And Montessori is designed to meet children where they are, but a lot of times my Montessori kids have been missed. They're not diagnosed early enough. And sometimes they need a little bit more structure and a little bit more, it's really hard sometimes for them to kind of guide their education. What I found amazing about my students in the Montessori programs is that they're taught to their intelligence, and that's super important. But I see sometimes what's lacking a little bit in the Montessori setting is the access to that assistive technology to even things out for them. And I think it's really important that that's addressed. We have that time issue. And I think that's something that I see that my students that I tutor struggle with that are in the Montessori setting.
Dahlia, would you like to add anything to that?
Just that I agree with Shelby that like with everything, this is a wonderful methodology, but we can do so much better. And that is the idea behind the DREAM project and why we partner, because we think the diagnosis can be done earlier and it can be done across the schools, and there are trainings that teachers can access and things and events like this one where parents and teachers can all join with the children in finding tools to support them. So that will be my addition.
Thank you. How about assistive tech for 2nd or 3rd graders or younger students?
Riley, are you still on? Could you answer that?
Yeah.
How would that have been helpful for you?
Like what, technology?
Yeah, in the 2nd and 3rd grade.
Probably audio and like a teacher to like clarify with me. Like if I would have had that earlier on, it would have been so much more helpful.
And then you would have been able to read the things that you want to.
Yeah, and I would have probably been more into reading if I would have started at a young age with my accommodations. Like if I would have started out with audio, I would have enjoyed it for so much longer of my life.
And so something that I notice, the younger students start with the audio component. They don't lose the vocabulary like the older students, but maybe are reading at their grade level, but not reading at their intelligence level. And so that vocabulary piece really kind of falls behind. So not being afraid to let your kids listen to the audio and read for fun that way. I know you still have to work on actually learning to read, but really embracing that audio for learning that vocabulary is super important.
I'll be really quick on that. I think it's really important. I grew up not really doing the audio, and you just get too far behind. So if there's a way to expedite that in the classroom and make it a more easier or comfortable situation for students to utilize the audio, I think that's huge.
There's a question about screening and the earliest appropriate age. And in public schools in the state of Oregon, we screen for risk factors of dyslexia at kindergarten, or if a student is new to school in first grade. But reading risk can be detected earlier than that as well, even as young as age 3. With deficits shown in phonological awareness, verbal working memory, and then letter knowledge. So with the right screening tools, you could be looking for risk factors at age 3, age 4, and then you could have even more robust information with screening at age 5. Related to the question about Montessori schools, why don't all Montessori schools screen 5- and 6-year-olds? Stay tuned for more information on that from the DREAM project.
So somebody has a question about our students, where what their plans are after high school. Iman, do you want to answer this?
Yeah, I'll answer this. So my plan for after high school is going to college. I'm not going to take any gap year. I'm just going to go straight into fall of 2021. And I'm applying to a bunch of colleges, doing my Common App, doing all the things I need to do, doing the timed essays to get scholarship money. Those suck. Anyway, but I plan on either majoring in biology or biochemistry, or possibly doing like a pre-med course and then becoming a doctor.
Thank you, Iman. So the question, I'm curious to learn about speech-to-text technology. A lot of our students actually just use what's on their computer in Google Docs. If they're using Word has a built-in speech-to-text. A lot of our students actually will use their iPhones and just record what they're writing with Siri and email it to themselves. So the speech-to-text can be several different apps.
There's a question about what assistive tech would you recommend that would work in Google Meet, the chat box, because the Chromebook accessibility feature doesn't necessarily type what the child says. And I was just, I'll let the kids see if they have a response to that, but I was wondering if, as a teacher, if I would accept if a student can't reply in the chat in an efficient, effective way. I wonder if just having the student record a voice memo and, on your phone, if that exists for this age of student, and send that to me to show, thought, participation, response. But that's just off the top of my head. The kids have any experience with Google chat box and using the accessibility features for the chat?
Somebody actually in our audience just raised their hand about that. Did they have an answer for us? No?
Well, I guess I could take this question.
Sure.
So I know that with my high school, we use like all the Google products. So we're in Google Meets, and I know that I like type into my chat box on the iPad, and then like usually on my keyboard there is like sometimes it like comes up like all corrections, like, oh, you've like typed this word a lot, but it's like misspelled wrong. You spelled it wrong, so here's the correct version. And then also like if the chat box is like really something too much, is just too much for you, like you can like usually talk to your teachers. And like I'm fortunate enough to have like a smaller school and smaller class sizes. So like my teacher's like, if you can't use the chat box, then just like turn off your mic and like verbally ask the question.
Danielle, or do we see any more questions?
Yes. Have you seen the Montessori approach to reading and writing, and in very young children? And I've worked with some children who've come from Montessori system, and they're strong in their phonological awareness. And learning their letters with cursive at a young age was very helpful for them. But they still show weaknesses in areas related to the phonics patterns, and being able to have access to things like maybe audiobooks where they get to challenge their intelligence and build their vocabulary and listen to a whole range of things, you know, that can sort of take them far. So with some of the students that I've tutored in a Montessori system, they need more explicit structure with the different aspects of language, but they have a very strong base in phonological awareness, letter sound knowledge. And then from there, they need even more explicit teaching.
And Danielle, I see the same thing.
There's a question about text-to-speech for younger grades, where selecting text to be read is out of their ability, where they might, you know, like difficulty, perhaps if it's a document, highlighting that to then click on it to have it be read to them. Any experience with a young student working with text-to-speech in different apps that are more age appropriate?
I kind of find that sometimes the younger kids do well with this piece if they're taught. A lot of times it's us adults that don't know how to use this piece quickly. Especially with like immersive reader being out, really just being able to highlight the information and click and talk. Students, Riley, do you want to offer any insight onto this?
Yeah, so the immersive reader is pretty easy to use. I'm sure younger kids could do it. It's the highlight and then the toolbar, and then you just click the immersive reader. I feel like immersive reader would probably be the easiest one, just because it's just right up there and it's right there for you to click on. Yeah.
Shelby, I will add the same. I had the experience with lower elementary students last spring, they never experienced computers before, and they were able to use immersive reader, text-to-speech with training. Obviously, it doesn't come natural to
Right.
them, especially if they have never used computers before, but second grader was, after a couple of explanations and demonstrations, was able to use it and enjoy it.
Yeah, and I think that's where that explicitly taught, their technology really needs to be taught. They need to be able to master it. Sometimes people give up after a couple tries, and it takes a little while.
Missy, you are writing the question that we're all like working to answer. There are great efforts to ensure that teachers are taught and follow the practices of what the science of reading tells us how to teach struggling readers. But there is much more work to be done in teacher training programs, pre-service and in-service teachers. There is much more work to be done. But the International Dyslexia Association has, they're the authors of the Knowledge and Practice Standards for Teachers of Reading. And across the United States, nearly every state has some type of legislation tied to dyslexia education, tied to teachers being trained in practices that relate or stand up against the knowledge and practice standards for teachers of reading. And they also accredit universities and private training schools and institutions that are certified, accredited providers of these particular standards. So when you come out of these types of programs, you know what structured literacy is, you know how to teach reading to any struggling reader. And we just need more institutions with this knowledge base. If you need more information on that, I'll be happy to send some of that in our follow-up email, especially because some of the universities that do have a very robust teacher training program, and whether that's elementary ed, special ed, or Montessori programs, many are accredited that we can put you in touch with. And in many cases, they offer like free information on how to set up your own either teacher training or college courses with their syllabi, their scope and sequence, and how their crosswalk with the knowledge and practice standards.
Danielle,
these are great questions.
Danielle, could you close us out?
Yes, thank you for your time. Thank you for your patience, especially just beginning the evening with not your name on the screen and an interesting way to interact with everyone. We appreciate that you took the time tonight on a school night, whether you're a parent, a kid, or a teacher, or anyone else who has other things to do, to listen to the stories of these students. By becoming more aware and hearing what they find to be helpful and not so helpful, hopefully we'll all learn and grow in knowing that people with dyslexia are all around us. They're different thinkers, but they bring so much to whatever they're doing that it's helpful if we make it visible so everyone knows that there's nothing wrong with you. You're exactly as you should be. And we should appreciate your strengths and support how you learn best. So thank you for being a part of that learning process.